I gotta say, it's become just heartbreaking following what's been going on in Gaza, and there has been so much of it, so often, every single day, that it's impossible for me as one person to even know of everything that is going on. But this recent attack is getting a lot of attention, especially on social media, because of the imagery coming out of it. Now, I can't show it to you because YouTube would simply restrict the video from even being viewed because of how extreme the imagery is. But I will say, before I even get to reading any of these headlines, any of the details, and discussion of a protest that happened in New York later on in this video, let me just briefly describe what I've seen, which is in one situation, a man in a hospital bed engulfed in flames, and you can actually see the IV coming out of his arm. Like, this is a man who is already in a dire situation in a hospital bed, and now he's engulfed in flames because of this Israeli strike. So this headline here from the New York Times: deadly Israeli strike hits central Gaza hospital complex. Israel said it targeted Hamas fighters inside the hospital compound. I don't even know why they put this in the subheading anymore. This is the excuse they use every time, and they have been caught lying again and again and again. And by the way, even if that was true, let's say there were Hamas fighters there, that gives you the right to just incinerate innocent civilians in the process? In what other situation is this justifiable? If there are, I don't know, a couple of evil individuals that take over a school, do you just, or a hospital, do we just destroy the entire hospital, regardless of who's in there? This is an insane excuse, even in the situation they are trying to paint. It's insane to use the idea that they're going after these Hamas fighters as the reason for just incinerating 100 people. So, UN Human Rights Group, this news came out last week, and I want to remind you after this to just the kind of discussions we had a year ago. But this from last week: Israel has perpetrated a concerted policy to destroy Gaza's healthcare system as part of a broader assault on Gaza, committing war crimes and the crime against humanity of extermination with relentless and deliberate attacks on medical personnel and facilities. And that's from the UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel. So this is, again, the UN report stating this. Remember a year ago where there was this big debate over whether or not Israel intentionally hit a hospital with a rocket? And, the whole media apparatus in the West came to the defense of Israel. Oh, they didn't mean to do it. And now it's just straight up, no, this is, not only did they do it in that case, they've been doing it again and again and again with the purpose of destroying Gaza's healthcare system. This is genocide. As Dropsite News reports here, this is from the most recent attack. At least 4 people died and 70 others, mostly women and children, were wounded, with many suffering severe third-degree burns. An intentional attack on a hospital. Dr. Mohammed Tahir, a surgeon from the UK who was volunteering at Al-Aqsa Hospital, told Al Jazeera, quote, "It's a horror show here. It doesn't feel real anymore. Honestly, sometimes I feel this is not real life, that this can go on and this degree of suffering is allowed to happen in this world. It's unimaginable." As they report here, since January, Israel has attacked the tent encampments in and around the hospital, just this one hospital, at least 7 times. Dropsite also reports the Israeli military characterized its incineration of civilians in tents at the hospital as a precision strike against the terrorists. We had to get them. And of course, provided no evidence to support its claims, because they don't have to anymore. They have seen that the US, the UK, and other Western allies will defend them no matter what. They'll continue supporting them, continue funding them regardless of what they do. So they don't have to justify any of these attacks. They don't have to provide any evidence, because regardless, that support from the West will continue. That's what they've seen up to this point. Now, report here from Haaretz. This is an Israel-based newspaper writing Israeli defense officials. According to them, the government is pushing aside a hostage deal because they are eyeing Gaza annexation. And anyone who's been following this closely over the past year, this has been clear, that this has been the intent. The intent by the Israeli government is to completely take over Gaza. And now that's what the officials are saying themselves. So IDF commanders in Gaza say the recent decision to operate in the northern part of the Strip was taken without proper deliberations and is apparently aimed at pressuring civilians in the area to relocate. Now, according to the AP, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is examining a plan to seal off humanitarian aid in northern Gaza in an attempt, and by the way, this is out of date, plan to seal off. No, there's no plan to seal off. This is what they've been doing. So CNN here, UN says no food has entered northern Gaza since the start of October, putting 1 million people at risk of starvation. Again, this is a clear genocide that Western allies continue to prop up and support with their money, with their weapons. And I just want to remind you of this headline from April 2nd here, that this sort of action has been going on forever, this entire past year. So this is Israel's killing of aid workers in Gaza, as they write here at the time, the Toronto Star, is a new blow to humanitarian efforts. So, you'll see reports like this. That makes it seem like this is sort of a new development in the assault on Gaza. It's not. This has been ongoing forever. But what has changed in terms of the West's support of Israel? Nothing. Despite the flagrant violation of international law, the obvious human rights abuses. Now, thankfully, there are those out there who are doing what they can to put a spotlight on this, to fight against this with their collective voices. In this case, Nora Hurwitz reporting here, a group of Jewish-led protesters in Lower Manhattan just stormed the New York Stock Exchange. They're calling for an end to Israel's genocide in Gaza and to war profiteering by companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. So, of course, the money tied into this is such a big piece of why this continues. Here's the clip. So this is Jewish Voice for Peace. As Jason Rosenberg reports here, over 500 Jews and allies shut down the New York Stock Exchange for Gaza. Quote, Gaza bombed, Wall Street booms, fund healthcare, housing, FEMA, not genocide. Here's another clip. And here's some images from the protest. Sophie Hurwitz sharing these. The t-shirt there, Stop Arming Israel. And the signs, as I quoted earlier, Gaza bombed, Wall Street booms, fund FEMA, not genocide. And it's worth mentioning, these protesters were soon, many of them arrested for protesting a genocide. Now, Derek Seidman on that point, sharing here, as Jewish Voice for Peace shuts down the New York Stock Exchange to demand the U.S. to stop arming Israel. I thought it'd be a good time to repost this map of the top shareholders: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity, etc., of major U.S. weapons companies. So this is from littlesis.org, and you can see the connections here. I'll link to his piece as well, where he is quoted as saying, 5 of the top 6 global defense corporations are based in the U.S. They are Lockheed Martin, RTX, formerly Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and General Dynamics. All 5 have long sold weapons to Israel that are used against Palestinians, and they have been mentioned in the news recently as being tied to weapon sales or potential weapon sales around the current assault on Gaza. Most of their stock prices shot up with the onset of the current war. Just a reminder that capitalism is tied directly to these sorts of actions, to a genocide like this. Look at how these companies profit off of mass atrocity.